a subject that no one wants to talk about. It's been a while, so here we are. I'm wondering when the health system is going to start taking things seriously. When they find out that their patient has history of mental illness. I understand, I really truly do understand that anxiety, depression, a lot of mental illnesses, I understand that a lot of the symptoms can line up with other physical symptoms, but for me, for example, the one night when I could not breathe, not going to talk much about that because it freaks me out still, but just the fact that I got taken into the ER via ambulance, and of course I was honest and I said, like, I have anxiety, I'm having a panic attack. I was scared because I had to go alone and everything got passed on to being anxiety, and it was just like, as soon as they heard that, it was like, oh well, you just have anxiety, you just need to calm down, you just need to breathe. And it's no different because it's always been that way with regular doctors for me too. You try to be as honest as you can with your doctor, but I've always had all kinds of physical symptoms, whatever you want to call them. And as soon as they find out that I was diagnosed with anxiety and that I was diagnosed with depression, that's where everything else goes. So then instead of checking into it being anything else, all they wanted to do was just push medication, like push medication. And I could understand to an extent of wanting to be able to cancel it out for sure by putting me on medication, because then it would obviously be able to narrow out, like, okay, so maybe it wasn't anxiety, maybe it wasn't depression. But the thing about that is, when you do start to take a medication for anxiety or depression, it takes weeks, if not months, for you to actually notice any difference at all. And with all the physical symptoms that I was feeling and everything, it felt like there wasn't time necessarily to, I don't want to say play around with it, but like to be able to actually wait and see and confirm that it wasn't just anxiety and depression. Like, they never wanted to test me further. Well, now I have a way better doctor that does, but just speaking for those who are going through this still, of going to the doctor and being honest with them, it's almost like you feel like you don't even want to tell them that you have anxiety because you know that they're just going to automatically put it on that. But some of the symptoms are serious, like shortness of breath being one of them. I know anxiety, yes, you can have shortness of breath and everything, but like, what if it's something else? Like, I just don't know why doctors are still dismissing it. Anything I would ever say, if I would say I'm feeling nauseous or like extreme fatigue to the point where I felt lethargic, they put it on anxiety and depression. I just feel like that night that I got sent to the ER from the ambulance, every doctor, every nurse that came in, not only were they, I'm trying to put it as nicely as I possibly can, because given everything going on with coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, I understand that everyone is overworked, overstressed, overwhelmed. I understand that, I really do. But the paramedics had mentioned that I did have anxiety, and so did I, because I was like sitting there crying because I wasn't allowed anybody to be with me, so I was in there by myself, just super upset. And anytime a new doctor or nurse would come in, first thing I said was, sorry, I'm having a panic attack. Like, I shouldn't have had to apologize though, but because I was crying and like kind of hyperventilating, so I'm like, it's just a panic attack, like I'm not completely freaking out. I didn't want them to think something else, you know. So then I got the attitude of, so you're in here for a panic attack? First of all, if I was, I should have been treated just like any other patient. Panic attacks are horrifying, absolutely terrifying. But I wasn't there for a panic attack. I was there because I was super sick. I've had so many different illnesses in my lifetime, and this was the worst. it had to be the worst time ever that I've been sick, where I could not breathe, like, just it's another story. But I just don't understand why still, when doctors find out that you have anxiety and depression, that's it. Like, they don't want to hear anything else. That's it. They just go straight to it. It frustrates me so bad. And, well, now I'm not so shy to say things about it, but I know that a lot of people who are struggling with anxiety are kind of too afraid to say, like, listen, I know this isn't anxiety, I know I have something else. Or even if you don't know, you just want to be able to make sure, you should be able to say, okay, well, can you run some tests? Can you do blood work? Can I get whatever kind of testing that you want done to confirm that it's not something else? I just don't understand why everything has to constantly go back to anxiety, constantly go back to depression. I mean, like I said, now especially I understand that doctors and nurses are very overworked and very overwhelmed, and they're risking their own health and their family's health by going to work every day. And I do understand that. But I'm not talking about just right now. I'm talking about all the time. All the time, whenever they find out that I have anxiety, they just go straight to that and they say, well, you're feeling this way because you're anxious. You're feeling this way because it's depression. You feel lethargic because you're depressed. You need medication. And that's not always the case. It's not. And it's so frustrating. And I just hope that if you really do feel like it's something other than anxiety and depression, and your doctor tries to just put it on that and blame it on that and kind of be like, oh, it's anxiety, it's depression, case closed, that's it, no testing. If you feel like it's something else, then you have to just speak up and say, listen, I get what you're saying, but can we possibly do any other type of testing to be able to cancel out that it's not something worse, that it's not something more serious? I know for hypochondriacs like myself, you don't want to wait the weeks, the months, whatever you have to, even if you do agree to try the anxiety medication, to cancel that out, because then your mind starts to wonder, okay, but then what if it is something more serious and I'm waiting these months? It's a mess. But if you truly do believe that it's something more than anxiety and depression, and that's what they're trying to just completely blame it on, just say case closed. Just, I know it's scary, but try to just be honest with your doctor and say, listen, I get what you're saying, but is there any other kind of test that I can do? Kind of just to be able to narrow out more possibilities of what the problem could be. And if you're like me, then you will have already Googled every possibility of what it could be. And even go through the list with the doctor and say, okay, so why is it not this? Why is it not that? Just make sure that you're, because seriously, a lot of times doctors are really just putting it on anxiety and depression. And I can understand to an extent from their perspective, because like I said, a lot of symptoms do line up and match up the same. But it's no excuse to just dismiss a patient just because you hear that they have anxiety. Especially when they're being open and honest with you about it and expressing to you that they do have anxiety, they do have depression, they're being upfront about it. Don't just dismiss it though. That's my thing, is just feeling dismissed. Like, I went in an ambulance to the emergency room and everything just got dismissed for anxiety. And I was even questioned if I had ever had a panic attack before. I couldn't tell you how many panic attacks before. I was diagnosed, like, officially at 13. I'm 26. I hate saying that. Over 10 years worth of experience, and I was actually asked, like, okay, well, if you've had a panic attack before, then explain to me what happened. And I'm thinking, no, like, I shouldn't have to, first of all. Why would I have to prove to you that I've had a panic attack before? But they completely just dismiss it on anxiety. So I'm just trying to emphasize that if you do feel like you have something, if you're just not sure, or just whatever it is, if they're trying to dismiss it all on anxiety, just ask if maybe there's any type of testing to be done, just to be sure to cancel out any other more serious things. Anxiety's serious, don't get me wrong, believe me, I know it's serious, but I know that doctors are very quick to just assume and dismiss whatever you're there for once they hear that you have anxiety and depression.